Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Oh boy. Canelo Alvarez stops Billy Joe Saunders. Actually, Billy Joe Saunders retires after the 8th round. Now, I was really surprised that this ended the way it did. I think a lot of people were. Let's make no mistake about it. Billy Joe, he quit in his corner after the 8th round. This was, I'll touch on that now in a sec, but this was a very, very good competitive fight the whole way through. Early on in the fight, like literally the first 3 rounds, I thought Canelo took them. And in the second round specifically, I actually thought that Billy Joe, it didn't look like he'd last much longer. And what I mean by that is, he actually looked almost as if he was overwhelmed by the occasion. Not necessarily Canelo himself, but it was like the occasion got to him, because he wasn't looking like himself. He was looking a bit slow, a bit ponderous. It looked like he was second guessing what he was doing in there. Obviously, a lot of that would come from the skill of Canelo, but with Billy Joe, it was like, has he overtrained? His legs didn't look right. He was kind of blown early on. And I kind of thought the occasion get to him. Did he overtrain? But then after the 3rd round, Billy Joe, for my money, really did start to kind of get almost a foothold in this fight. He grew in confidence, and he was visibly frustrating Canelo. You could see that. You know, Billy Joe was able to use his feet movement is not as quick at 168. I think that's apparent to see. But the angles he was giving Canelo, the movement he was giving Canelo, the jab, the southpaw jab, he was landing a few. I remember, I think it was the 6th round, he landed a couple of body shots and then a lovely kind of left uppercut to Canelo Alvarez. And you could see this, because these weren't hurtful shots for Billy Joe, not necessarily hurtful, but they were scoring shots. And he was picking up rounds in there. And you could see Canelo was getting frustrated. You know, you could see visibly he was frustrated. You know, the success he had early on. The 2nd round, he actually stunned Billy Joe a bit, I felt, with a right hand. Billy Joe's legs definitely stiffened, and he definitely felt it. But after he started to grow in confidence, we saw Billy Joe showboating. We saw him pick up rounds. Chris Mannix on the zone had Billy Joe ahead. It was definitely kind of a fight where it was kind of even enough. You know, you could have had it either way. I think I had it come to time with a stoppage after 7. I think I had it 68, 66 to, or 65 to Canelo. I gave Billy Joe, I think, the 5th round, the 6th round, and you could argue the 7th round with his rounds. But the 8th round came about, and this is where it all kind of changed. You know, Canelo started that round strong. He appeared to stun Billy Joe, because Billy Joe noticeably started clinching and holding on. And this wasn't like a tactical clinch. You could tell that Billy Joe was really grabbing the Canelo, almost as if he was trying to buy time. He didn't look hurt. You know, people were saying, I saw people say online, well, he quit after a bad round. It wasn't that bad a round. It wasn't a punishing round. It wasn't like he was taking an absolute Hail Mary beating in there and realised enough's enough. No. You know, it was definitely a Canelo round, the 8th round. But he didn't take a shellacking in that round, not in the least. I noticed there was a swelling under Billy Joe's eye. Now, it just seemed to kind of come from nowhere, because if anything, Canelo had a little nick under his eye, which I noticed, but that swelling just seemed to come almost out of the blue. And it was definitely bothering Billy Joe. We'll say what you want about the 8th round. He didn't take a beating in that round, but it was a Canelo round, but the eye was troubling Billy Joe. You could see that. It was apparent. And Canelo was really getting fired up in that round. You know, he was landing some good shots. He was throwing hard shots. You know, he was going to head and body. The crowd were warming into it. You know, whenever Billy Joe would even clinch, they boo. Whenever Canelo would throw some shots, the cheers. So, going off topic, that is what we need in boxing. We need 70,000 screaming fans worldwide. You know, obviously not everywhere can do 70,000 fans in terms of, you know, in terms of like the stars, but we need fans. This atmosphere was brilliant. But it was like, that eye was bothering Billy Joe, and it was like, okay, maybe he's gonna regroup and see what happens. In the corner, they did a close-up, and there was a little gash underneath it, a little cut, nothing major, it wasn't bleeding. I thought his eye was swollen shut when they had the end swell on it, but it wasn't. It was just that he had it closed, and then they called it, and they quit. Billy Joe quit. There's no mistake about it, he quit. Now, I have always been, and I will continue to be, easy on fighters who quit. Because I don't know, I'm doing a post-fight review straight after, I don't know what damage happened to Billy Joe's eye. There could have been a detached retina, there could have been something serious. At the end of the day, I think it was Carl Frampton who criticised Daniel Dubois for quitting. Daniel Dubois could very well have gone blind. If Billy Joe Saunders' eye is injured to the extent of that it was bothering his vision, that he did worry that something could happen, I'm not the one in that position. You know, I've never, yeah, boxed, but I've never had anything happen to my eye. I've never had anything like that serious happen, so I don't know the extent of the injury. So I don't begrudge Billy Joe quitting if it was a bad injury. Right? I did find it a bit strange when I seen it. I was kind of taken aback when I saw Canelo. I thought, was he showboat? And then I was like, oh, they're pulling him out of the fight. Because it wasn't like, as I said, it wasn't like Billy Joe suffered a beating, a terrible, you know, one-sided beating in that 8th round and he thought, you know what, enough's enough. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't like he was sustaining a beating the whole way through this fight. Again, nothing like that. This was a very competitive fight. You know, we really saw, as I said, we'd see Canelo look human in this fight. And as far as I'm concerned, we absolutely did. You know, Billy Joe, if he'd seen the fight out, now obviously had the injury not happened, God knows what would have happened. For my money, Canelo was definitely taking a foothold in this fight. He was getting used to the angles. He was having success with the body shots. The body shots were bothering Billy Joe from the get-go. From the get-go, the body shots were bothering Billy Joe. He was putting on a smiley face, but whenever he'd land a good body shot, Canelo, Billy Joe would you'd take a big puff of air and he'd just be stationary. So Canelo was definitely having a success. I suspect that he would have had this injury not have happened to Billy Joe. I'm not going to say it's an injury because that's apparently what it is. Had this, you know, eye injury, I should say, not have happened, you would imagine this probably would have went the distance, in which case Canelo would have probably got a decision. It'd be interesting to see what the scorecard said. Very interesting. Chris Mannix had Billy Joe ahead by a couple of rounds. I think he had him ahead by, I think he only gave Canelo 2 rounds of time with the stoppage, which is bizarre. I keep 1 more rounds than that, definitely. But, you know, for me, this was a very anticlimactic ending. Eubank Jr. is going to have a field day with Billy Joe Saunders. Look, as I've said, I'm not one to criticise fighters who quit. I haven't done it before, I ain't going to do it now. I don't know the extent of the injury. I don't know the extent of the damage done. I'm not in Billy Joe's position, so I'm not going to say heads or tails from it. If he felt it was best to preserve his eyesight, then I'm not one to judge, because I'm not in his position. All right, and neither is anyone watching this video. It's easy for someone to say, "Oh, he quit," you know. "Oh, if that was me." Have you ever been in that position? I haven't. And look, I'm not defending the prediction. I thought Canelo would win this fight. I said it from the get-go. Thought he'd win this fight. You know, I did think Billy Joe would be competitive, and that he definitely was, but I don't know the extent of the injury. We'll have to wait and see. For now, Canelo picks up his WBO title. Again, remains undefeated. He really does have a hell of a resume, and Caleb Plant is the only other champion. People, I've never rated Caleb Plant, as you know. I think that Billy Joe was the toughest fight at 168 for Canelo. I think Canelo will beat the living crap out of Caleb Plant. So that's my thoughts on that. For now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'm going to try and get some sleep after this. It's what, like after 5 now? Or is it 5? I don't know. I wasn't even keeping track of time. But I've been up pretty much all night, so I don't even feel tired, which is great. I normally feel tired when I do these all-nighters, but not tonight. So I'm going to talk to you here. We'll have a chat about this tomorrow on a live stream for sure, and obviously I'll know the extent of his injuries, and I'll probably do a video on that as well. But for now, lads and lassies, have a great morning, because it is technically morning. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe, of course, if you're new. Hashtag GMansRocks, all that good stuff. Lads and lassies, for now, I'll talk to you. Peace.